How's it going, guys? My name is Zach with The Movie Castle, and today we're going to be talking about the newest issue of The Creeps magazine. For those of you guys who are unfamiliar, The Creeps is a classically styled anthology horror comics magazine. So in each issue you get several scary stories. They're all in really cool, grungy black and white. And if you like things like the classic monsters appear in this magazine quite a bit. But it's not just that. You get like any and every kind of story you could really think of. There is quite a good bit of variety in here, and we'll be taking a look at that with this issue because there are some very cool varied stories in here. So this is number 31 from August 2021, and it features this really nice painterly cover. I really do like this. You know, you get all sorts of covers for anthology magazines. This one's much more painterly than usual, and it depicts an actual panel from the book, which I always do like. You know, sometimes with comics you just get, you know, cool images that are just covers, right? But this one is an exact panel from the book. You get this guy coming out of his grave and attacking the grave robbers, and you can see the grave robbers of Yorkshire starts on page 6. So a really cool, very green cover, and I do like how they made their logo. This is usually filled in, but it's just an outline now, so you can actually see through the logo, and you get the cool moon there. But let's go ahead and flip the magazine open. On the opposite of the cover, you get the old Creeps Historic Horrors, and today he's talking about cephalophones. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it, but basically Headless Horseman. You know, you get this Sleepy Hollow right there. You get someone from in the Inferno, a knight and a bishop who was decapitated and walked to where he wanted to be buried. So some very creepy headless people there, and I didn't know that the group of headless people had a name, cephalophones. Always cool to see them digging in and doing the research, and hey, now we know the name of that group. It is a group, but I never thought of them having a collective name, you know. And then moving along, we get the table of contents, and if you want to pause and read the credits there, credit where credit is due. You get to see all the, you know, people behind the magazine, the artists and writers and stuff. And we can also see what exactly is in this magazine with a little bit of a preview for each of these stories, as well as a table of contents. So the Dear Old Creep, which is the letters page, the Grave Robbers of Yorkshire, which is the one from the cover, the picture in the house based on an H.P. Lovecraft story, It's Not Cricket, Hide and Shriek, Reload, Interrogator, the Creeps Fan Club, which is a user-submitted prose story and a user-submitted drawing, and the Low Down Saloon. And one thing you notice right there is that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 stories, whereas the Creeps usually get just 6. Now, the magazine is still the same length, I believe 50 or so pages, so the stories are a little shorter, but you do get an extra one this time around, which is pretty fun. You know, if you want the stories to stay fast moving, you know, you get shorter stories, they move faster, you know, and overall I didn't really notice them being that much shorter, and hey, getting that 7th story is pretty fun. So that's that. Little look at the mail page, and after that we're going to go ahead and dive right into the stories. Now I'm going to do a quick summary of my thoughts on the stories, and I will talk a little bit about the plot. But I'm not going to be doing any major spoilers, so don't worry about that. But I just do want to say my piece on a few plot points and make sure you guys have a basic understanding as to what the story is about. But I won't give away any of the twist. And, you know, a classic horror magazine like that, there are several twists. But we open up the Grave Robbers from Yorkshire story. You get two guys, and there was a man who was practicing the dark arts and was buried alive, supposedly with his fortune, so they want to go dig him up because times are hard in the village, but what exactly is going on in the village, they don't say. But when they go to dig him up, the man that was buried alive because of the dark arts is still alive, but he's this skeletal figure with this really cool design and the tattered cloak and stuff. And you can see this big, it's not quite a full page splash, but this big panel here, that's what inspired the front cover to this magazine. But anyway, the two accidentally unleash this evil dark sorcerer, and one of them gets drug away for his own nefarious purposes. But of course, there's more to the story than just that. I really do love this panel here. He's looking over his spell book, and the creepy fingers really does remind me of the Crypt Keeper. There's a whole world of classic anthology horror, and this really, taps into a lot of that and keeps the tradition alive. So really cool to see the skeleton reaching over the book, Moving right along to the second story, that one was pretty good. Really do love the creature in that one. But the second story, The Picture in the House, the H.P. Lovecraft adaptation. I really do love H.P. Lovecraft and all his crazy stories. So always cool. They always do a classic horror story in the Creeps, and cool to see another Lovecraft. They really could re-release all the Lovecraft stuff into a trade paperback or something. I'd definitely pick that up. But this guy, he's bicycling down the road. He's going to Arkham, of course, because it's Lovecraft. But the rain gets so bad, he wants to stop in the seemingly abandoned house, and he talks about how in these abandoned houses, these are kind of people that are forced out of the city, and they might have strange beliefs, that are keeping them away from regular society. And he goes in the house and he finds a very rare book, and it's a book on cannibalism full of gruesome images. But of course, he's not alone in the house. The owner does come, and he has a particularly strange encounter with the owner of this book. And I really do like this story. Just classic Lovecraft. I want to go back and read all the Creeps Lovecraft adaptations. They're really, really fun and cool to see another one. I think they've done some Poe as well. Anyway, moving along, quite strange story. You get It's Not Cricket, and you get this guy, a local weirdo who has been brought in. This lady is working at a pet shop, and he asks for 100 crickets, but because she won't say what they're for, or because he won't say what they're for, rather, she doesn't give them to him, and he decides to steal them instead. But you see, this guy does a bunch of weird stuff, and the police can never hold him because he's actually the assistant for this really famous writer, and the writer always comes in and helps people drop the charges, persuades them against it. So he does all these really weird, not super bad stuff, just weird little petty stuff, and they can never hold him. And why did he steal this bag of crickets? It's a really weird thing to want and steal, and it's one of those stories that, it's strange, it's a weird little incident, and you don't really know what's up, and then it gets to the end of the story, and I'm like, oh, I should have seen that coming. I really should have. It's definitely one of those that, is a story unlike anything you really would have seen anywhere else. And it's a weird little idea, a weird story that you wouldn't see in too many other places. And then it gets to the end and I'm like, I should have seen that coming. That's a good twist. Up next, Hide and Shriek. You get this new kid in town, and he wants to hang out with these two other kids, but of course these are bad influence kids, and they convince him to throw a rock at the house of an old lady they say is a witch. After that, they convince him to go farther in the woods than he's supposed to play a game of hide and seek, as you may have guessed from the title, but he hides in this creepy old hollowed out tree. It almost looks like it has a face, like from the Necronomicon from the Evil Dead movies. A really creepy tree. Young kids in a small town almost had a little bit of a Stephen King feel to this story, and him hiding in the tree for way too long, because of course the bullies are mean and they don't really look for him. Him alone in this dark tree, these scenes get really creepy, and overall this story had some pretty fun moments to it. I really did like this, and like I said, The Creeps is a lot of classic monsters, but this is a horror story, but it's not, it's a little different. It's more along the lines of Stephen King than, classic monsters. And talk about something really different. You get this next story, Reload, and you get this young kid in a cowboy bar drinking his root beer when someone comes in and shoots him, but you can tell from these parts here, his face flies off and there's nuts and bolts. He's not a real person. This is a Westworld styled story where these are all just robots here, and they're acting out, for the benefit of humans. And this one, though, it's not just like, hey, let's do Westworld. Let's take a concept and do something different with it. The robot is stolen from the park because, it's just damaged robot lying on the ground. Let's steal it. And this guy goes to this roboticist and gives him a picture of his dead son and says, hey, use this, but make it look like my son so I can replace my dead son. But you're bringing out into the real world a robot that wasn't its purpose. So I can't say if that's going to really go well. But I do like, taking, a concept that we've seen before, and, it's not just like, oh, the ethics of robotics, or, let's focus on the idea that it's a theme park. It's not doing any of that stuff we've seen before and saying, hey, this is the old idea, but what if we twisted it? It's like the beginning of Westworld and then going into Steven Spielberg's AI a little bit, but not really exactly like either of those two stories, and doing its own thing, So I do like repurposing old pieces to make something new. That is really fun, and that's really what you get there. Up next, a classic jerk character gets his comeuppance story with Interrogator. And you see there's this guy, he's beating the heck out of a suspect until he confesses to murder. And this other guy's like, he may not have even done it. He may have just confessed because you beat him up so much. And they're like, nah, we got to keep people going. We got to get convictions. We can't let the process get hold up. So he doesn't care if it's really justice. He just cares about getting the job done. But of course, there'll be a strange encounter in Chinatown later where he beats a suspected thief to death, and that's going to have major consequences for him. This is a very Tales from the Crypt style story, Tales from the Crypt, some Twilight Zone as well, is, hey, there's this guy doing something he shouldn't, he's a huge jerk, let's throw him into this weird situation and, get some revenge. So always cool to see a story like that. Got a few ads we're flipping past, and then we get to the Creeps Fan Club. Creeps Fan Club, we get a story, Aurora's Pond. In this one, a lady named Aurora has an abusive husband who one day kills a whining baby and throws it in the pond. So she's upset for the loss of her child, but because she's so abusive, kind of forgets and has to remember this. And of course, a supernatural twist happens, and then you get some nice fan art of a mummy and a beautiful woman that he's about to attack there. So Ian Klink and Allison Mason Arajo. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of those names, but that's the fan submitted page. And then after that, we get the last story, and we got a bonus story, but I always say this, I feel it's crazy we got to the end so fast. And this is the Low Down Saloon. You get this guy running in from the desert, hot, and trying to just get out of there. He's in a hurry, and he goes to the Low Down Saloon. You see, he's traveled this way before, but he's never seen a town there. So this saloon just popped up in the middle of nowhere. Just was built overnight, it seems, and he goes in for a drink because he's been traveling for a while. And you get the old creep there, dressed up like a cowboy with his ace there, the ace of spades, and he goes in for the drink, and he asks the bartender how much it will be, and the bartender just says, "Oh, how about a story? Tell me where you came from and why you're running, and if it's good enough, you can have the drink, and you can also have a place to stay." But of course, you know, the creepy bartender and the bar that wasn't supposed to be there, and you have to hear this guy's backstory. You know that there's going to be some mysterious things afoot. You know, again, another classic tale of he's some guy doing something he shouldn't, and then supernatural means pursuing him. You know, really cool story. Actually, with the robot cowboy story, kind of two Western stories. This tale, this issue rather. But yeah, some pretty cool stuff. We got 7 stories this time around. A bonus story, but like I said, all the stories I believe were a little shorter this time. But some pretty cool classic stuff, and like, you know, even though it was a simpler story, that one with the crickets is one I've been thinking about for a bit after reading it, you know. And there are a few, you know, in there like that where it's a few weirder stories, but you're like, huh, that really was interesting. And I do really like, you know, the creeps takes pieces of old things and twist them in a way you wouldn't suspect. And there are quite a few stories like that where you're like, okay, that's an interesting take on a classic monster or something. So the creeps, as always, is really, really good. If you haven't picked this magazine up, I recommend going ahead and do it. And like I said, it's Anthology, so you don't need to have any of the previous issues. You can jump in whenever you see it. And for those of you who are unfamiliar, you have the creeps, but you also have they make another magazine, Vampirus Camilla, which is also black and white horror stories. And if you like one, you like the other. So I definitely recommend picking these up. These are always super fun. But anyway, to everyone who's watched so far, thank you for watching. To everyone who's liked and subscribed, thank you. You're really helping the channel out. I'll put a relevant playlist at the bottom. If you want to see more, you can click there and see more. Should be The Creeps and Vampirus Camilla playlist. So if you want to see more about those magazines, they're there. You can see all the ones I reviewed so far. Anyway, have a good day. Have a good day now. I'll see you guys again very, very soon. Relevant playlist on the bottom. Have a good day now.